Hi. We love to make Christmas cookies at our house, and gingerbread is just a classic holiday cookie. And honestly, I've never made gingerbread cookies that weren't low carb. Gingerbread was not part of what we would do. We do sugar cookies, and generally it was the store-bought sugar cookie dough that we would make, that we would roll out and try to do cookie cutters before my husband ate all the raw dough. So when I started making cookies, I decided that gingerbread would be a great flavor to try to make low carb. So I'm going to make this one way and show you some variations in case you don't have ingredients. One ingredient that really is non-negotiable is oat fiber. I'm going to use a cup of oat fiber. The oat fiber gives a great texture to the cookies. It actually helps to make it crisp and gives it kind of a floury mouthfeel. So I'm going to use 1 cup of oat fiber. If you've made my biscuit recipe, then you probably already have oat fiber on hand. Now, a lot of people have almond flour, and it's pretty easy to find. If you have almond flour, use that. I have hazelnut flour, and I love hazelnut flour. Either way, you're going to use 3/4 cup. I'm going to use hazelnut in this batch because it's darker. And I want to show you the difference because I already have a batch I made with almond flour. But this is 3/4 cup of hazelnut flour. Hazelnut flour is a little lower carb than almond flour, and so that's one of the reasons I like it. It also has this rich, wonderful, deep flavor. So I'm not going to use the almond flour, but you could use 3/4 cups of that. I'm also going to use a 1/2 cup of Sukrin brown sugar. You've seen me use this in my pumpkin pie recipe. I've used it in the pecan pie recipe. I love this stuff. This Sukrin brown sugar. If you don't have it, it's a 1/2 cup. You can use just a regular granulated sugar. You can add some molasses if you want to get that deep brown sugar flavor. I prefer not to use molasses if I can help it. So in addition to that, we've got 1 cup of oat fiber, 3/4 cup of hazelnut flour. Again, you can substitute almond flour. This is 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Make sure I say it right. Baking powder. I'm going to add my spices. Now, I didn't have enough containers, so I had to kind of add these. But use the spices that you like. I'm using 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger. I don't like it overpowered with ginger, but 1.5 teaspoons of ground ginger, a full teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. Cloves are pretty strong and they can overpower it quickly, but just 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, and then there's a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You might want to cut down the salt if you're using salted butter too. So that's those ingredients. These are all my dry ingredients. I'm going to put the top on this and give it a little bit of a whirl. Okay, that's nicely mixed. And the other thing I'm going to do is add butter. This is 7 tablespoons of butter. And it can be cold. If you're not using, I like a food processor just because it's easy. If you're not using a food processor, you might want to have the butter softened at room temperature. If you are, it doesn't matter. You can just toss it in. So that's 7 tablespoons of butter. 1 egg. That's just 1 large pastured egg. A teaspoon and a half of vanilla. And you can use less vanilla. I just love it. And then this is what works really, really well. This is a fiber syrup. Again, it's a Sukrin product. It is, I'm using their brown sugar. It has this wonderful deep flavor that it's really like molasses or honey, but it doesn't spike your blood glucose. They also have a clear fiber syrup. You can use either. I've used the clear fiber syrup for plain cookies, for the oatmeal cookies. I like the dark for the gingerbread. The hazelnut flour too, I wanted to mention, some of you may have ordered it. I order mine from Honeyville. Some of you may have gotten that. They have their great Black Friday sale where everything was 20% off, and they have free shipping above a certain point. So I always stock up, and I do store it in the freezer. What I like about the hazelnut flour is you can adapt this recipe to make a yummy chocolate hazelnut cookie. And you can also there's a wonderful hazelnut bundt cake recipe that Carolyn Ketchum does. So let's mix this all together. see happen is the dough, as it starts to mix, it'll get more like a dough. It'll really come together. It takes it a while, but it will come together. The other thing to be careful about is ingredients are different, and you may want to weigh them. The almond flour may act a little bit different from the hazelnut flour. They're very similar, so it shouldn't. But you can see it's a nice, rich color. You might want to taste it for sweetness. I wanted to comment too, if you don't have the Sukrin syrup, fiber syrup to use, you could use some molasses in this. You could, I've tried to find other substitutions. You could use a honey made with xylitol or a different honey. I don't like to use the honeys that are made with the sugar-free honeys made with maltol because it raises my blood glucose, but you could use that. Now this dough is very thick, but what you're gonna find is that especially after you refrigerate it, it rolls out really, really well. So what we're gonna do now that we have the dough made, I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator for 45 minutes to an hour and let it sit. When we pull it out of the fridge, you can actually roll it with a rolling pin. I use parchment paper. I put it between two pieces of parchment paper. I'm gonna show you. And I was able to make these cutouts. Now, it bakes at 325. You wanna kinda go low and slow. The longer you bake it at the slower heat, the crisper they're going to be. When they come out of the oven, they're going to be soft. Let them sit, let them cool, put them on a rack if you can, and they will firm up so that you can handle them pretty well. We have not decorated these, but you can see I've got gingerbread man and a snowman. I've got a sweet little angel. I actually thought I could just take my white icing and outline the angel and give her eyes and maybe share that with a neighbor. So, and there's a snowflake, and it actually held together. I was surprised it held together. So let's put this in the fridge. I'll pull out the dough from the fridge and we'll do some cookie cutouts. Okay, so our dough has been sitting in the fridge for a little while and it's nice and cool. And I've got my elves here to help. And so this is just a gingerbread dough. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it on our parchment paper, and I'll put a piece of parchment paper on top of it. And I'm not great with this, but I've got my elves, and you guys can pick out which cookie cutter you want to use. And I'm just going to press it down and roll it out. It's a big blob. You want to do it?
Yeah.
All right. Put your book down. Okay?
Hello.
There, you do that. While the kids are rolling that out, I'm going to show you how to make the icing. He's good. For the icing, we're just going to use some powdered Sukrin. This is powdered sugar. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of powdered Sukrin. Now this is the confectioner's Sukrin. And you can use any granulated sugar, put it in the blender, and come up with powdered sugar. Did you know that, Jay? So if you have a Ricotol or any other brand, if you don't have the Sukrin, this stuff is really good. But if you don't have it, you can use or if you have a granulated version of this, put it into the Ninja and give it a grind, and you'll get powdered sugar. Now that's 1/4 cup. And to that 1/4 cup of powdered sweetener, this is a low carb sweetener, I'm going to add a tablespoon, sure. Now it's just a tablespoon, Jonathan, of that. And be careful, it'll come out fast. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So he's going to add 1 tablespoon to that. Well done. Okay. And it's up to you whether you,
Jonathan, can you help me with this?
It's up to you. Go ahead, Grace. It's up to you whether you want to add any vanilla, but I'm going to add just a drop or 2 of vanilla. And you could do some melted butter, and confectioner's sugar is different consistencies, and so you may need to add a little more, but give it a stir. You'll be surprised how quickly it starts to dissolve. And once you get it mixed really well, you're going to have something that looks like this. And this is the icing we mixed up earlier. A little more?
Yeah.
Okay.
It needs to be a little bit more moist to get all that.
There. It will thicken up too as it sits. So if you make this ahead of time, it will be thicker by the time you use it. We're making a small amount. You could certainly double it, but it's 1/4 cup of the granulated sweetener to
May want to write that down.
1 tablespoon of heavy cream. All right, Jonathan, let me give that a stir, and then we'll see how Grace is doing over there.
And it looks like she did a good job.
It does look like she did a good job. You want them to be...
Can I choose the first cookie?
You might want to do between 1/8 and 1/4 inch thickness. Now remember, the oven is on, put another drop of this, the oven is on 325. All right. And these guys are going to share.
No, we're not.
And I tried to decorate a few on my own, and I can show you what a mess I made of those.
Snowman.
Okay, snowman. All right. And then as the kids
Don't
cut
forget
them
a real
out.
gingerbread man.
All right, hold on. I've got some oat fiber on here too. If the dough starts to get too wet or is too wet, you can add oat fiber. You guys are doing a great job. This snowflake is hard to do, so let me move this out. And I'm just using the spatula to get underneath it. When you've got warm hands helping do this, the dough will warm quickly.
Hey, Mom.
Grace, I need you to move your arm, sweetie.
Can I show them something?
Sure.
After you're done? Okay, because I want to show them a little trick.
Okay, I'm just going to pull this out. This is a kind of
With that, I'll show you a little trick.
This is a complicated one with the snowflake, so I may have to work on those spokes. Yeah, we got a couple candy canes here.
Easy.
And we've got more dough in the fridge, so the kids can do all
You
kinds.
can just leave that one.
Leave that one. And then what we're going to do after we get these up, and we're going to roll the dough out again.
But I'm going to show you a trick first.
Okay. We're going to roll the dough out again, and we'll keep going.
Hey, that was my trick.
And Grace is great with decorating.
Oh boy,
so
that's our candy cane.
It's okay. I can push it back together. Candy cane had a tough life. That candy cane is a kind of a funny looking. It really does work better to use a spatula under it, doesn't it, guys?
Mm-hmm.
You want to try it?
You just let...
Yeah, get right underneath. There you go. Well done.
All right, stop, Grace. I can do it.
Okay. There you go. Good job.
We're not gonna do this one, okay?
Now we're gonna mix it all together.
And do some more.
Careful.
And when the kids get all the cutouts done,
All right, be careful, John.
we're going to bake in the oven for at 325 for 7 to 8 minutes. You want to do it lower. You want to do it a lower temperature and let it go longer rather than do it at a higher temperature, because they will dry out and they're more likely to be crisp. Now, hang on, Jonathan. We don't have that rolled out quite right. Hold on. It'll be way too thick. You want to get them all about the same thickness if you can. When you bring them out of the oven, they will not be crisp. They will be soft. And so you want to let them sit. And like I said, the longer they bake, the crisper they'll be at the end. But you can see these that we did. This gingerbread man lost his leg. Here's another gingerbread man. We are not experts at decorating, but we have a star and a mitten.
Ooh, can I
and we were
decorate
using, yes, we were using this icing to decorate earlier. So I hope that you make gingerbread cutout cookies with your family and that you enjoy them as much as we do. Yes.